Welcome back to another episode of Questions and Answers live stream. My name is Scott Wilkinson. I'm going to be your host here for the next hour and a half. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through a bunch of questions. People have piercing problems and questions. I answer them to the best of my ability. And on the other side over here, we have Jared.
Hey, everybody. Good to see you.
So, welcome back. Thanks if you're just joining in. Make sure you send us some good, thorough questions if you're asking us questions. Make sure it's as descriptive. And if you think you know why the issue is there, let us know, because the more we know, the better we can answer these questions. So
nice to see you, Henrique. We are doing well. We hope you are also doing well. So a question we had earlier is a brand new piercing. You wake up the next morning and there's a little bit of blood. Is that normal, or is that something that we should be worried about?
Pretty normal. When you get a new piercing, ultimately it is an open wound for a minimum of a month. Now, within that month, you're developing something called the fistula, which is scar tissue, and it slowly gets thicker and thicker and thicker until it can fully prevent things from getting inside there, causing the infection. So the fact that the next day there's a little bit of bleeding, not surprised. And if you had it was like on your head or something like that, or on your ears or oral, a lot of times these do bleed. Because when we lay down, there's more blood flow to our head. Because when we're standing up, it's not as flowing up there as thoroughly and as strong. So a little blood in the morning, it does happen.
We have a question from Emily who wants to know what you think about doing curated ear piercings, because it does seem like the style these days. That's what everyone seems to be doing.
It does. And it's a great question, because I do the What Should I Get Pierced series, and that is kind of a curation and kind of show some options and some different possibilities for piercings. But when it comes to like when people come in and they say, hey, just like take over my ear, I don't know. It's not my personal thing. There's a lot of piercers out there who will upsell things, to say the least. So there's really pushing a lot of gold, pushing a lot of, and which is beautiful, but the first and foremost thing is that you have a good experience, you get something that's going to allow it to heal. And if you're doing something that isn't going to heal and you spend $300-400 on this beautiful gold piece, and then a month later you have to take it out, that sucks.
Now, what do you mean exactly when you say it's not going to heal? Do you mean that like the curation might not be... what do you mean exactly?
Okay, if I was doing a curation and I got a piercing and I realized I can't have this piercing because I wear helmets and it's constantly being irritated, or I didn't realize that like this is, I always sleep on this side, or I realize, with work I have to wear this headset and it's not going to allow my piercing to heal, take it out, and there's no returns on jewelry. So that's kind of what I mean. So there's always the possibility of an infection. There's always the possibility a piercing can reject and grow out. And sometimes that can happen within a few months. Sometimes it takes a long time. But that's my nervous thing about selling someone a really high-end piece of jewelry right off the get-go. I like to start with titanium, allow it to heal up, get fully comfortable, and then change to the high-end jewelry once it's established and it's done.
Okay, I see what you're saying there. That makes more sense to me now.
Okay.
So we have a few people saying hi. We're a Mr. Bean fan in 2006 and Anna J.
Hey,
also,
everyone.
Caitlin Moore is a body piercer / tattoo shop owner from Granite City, Illinois.
Welcome.
Saying hello. Monica says, hey, Scott, hugs from Poland. I wanted to tell you thanks to your channel. I got my ears pierced all over again. I have 8 earrings in one ear, 1 in my navel, and 1 in my nostril, done decades ago.
That's fantastic. Congratulations. I hope you've had a wonderful experience, and I hope it continues to be a wonderful journey. Piercings are so much fun.
They really are.
Yeah.
Henrique has a very common question, actually.
Sure.
Henrique went and got a piercing. I believe it's 18 days ago. We had our lobes pierced. Is it okay to change our jewelry?
No. The only reason you should ever be changing your jewelry at that short amount of time is if you're having problems. If the bead or the jewelry is getting sucked inside your ear because the jewelry is too tight, then you need to get something longer put in there. But if it's just for, I guess, the vanity reason of changing it up because you want something fancier to match, you need to fully heal up your piercings. Earlobe piercings take a minimum of 6 to 8 weeks to heal. It's going to seem like they're healed way before that, but you're healing that tube of scar tissue called that fistula, and that needs to get thick enough to where you can change your jewelry without causing issues. The issues I'm talking about is possibilities of infection, as well as ripping the scar tissue, which causes bumps to grow. You might have seen it looks like a big pimple growing on the side of your piercing, and sometimes it takes months or even for almost forever to get rid of these bumps. So it's not worth it. Fully heal it up, and then you can change out your jewelry without the risk.
So saying that if I change it early, even if it feels okay, and I just start putting new jewelry in, that can cause the bump.
Yes.
And that if I had just waited in the first place, I probably could have healed it up with no bump.
Exactly. Like if I had a cut or a scrape on my arm and it would just happened and it seems like, oh, the scab, it seems mostly healed, but then I was rough on it and I reopen it back up. That's what I'm talking about. Reopening the wound, because the wound is to protect itself from physical activities and changing your jewelry. Yeah.
So hang back, Henry. Don't do it. Wait, and then change it once it's healed.
And here's the issue. A lot of people will change their jewelry early, and there's some who do it fine. And like, I changed mine. Mine's okay. So what's wrong with that? Then there's also the people who I went to change mine. Mine got infected. I lost my piercing, had to take it out and start over from scratch.
Right.
So it's worth waiting a couple extra weeks.
Monica, who we just spoke to, who had those piercings done decades ago, said she was hardly paying any attention for a long time, apart from just basic hygiene.
Yep.
And thanks to your passion in the community, the piercings bring her joy again.
Fantastic. I love that.
Tegan got a double helix, and it got 2 bad hits 2 days in a row, a school bag and then a dodgeball. It's 3 months old, and now there's some new bumps. Is this going to push the healing time back quite a bit?
Yeah, it is. Stick with it. Patience, and get better dodging those dodgeballs. Of course, that always happens. You get a fresh piercing. It just bam, you get hit right in that spot. Try to get the swelling down. If you need to ice it, that can help a ton. Don't give yourself like frostbite and hold the ice directly. Just cold. That'll get the swelling down. That emu oil can help really upset piercings. It's upset right now and extra irritated. So the more you keep that swelling down, the easier it's going to be for you. And that emu oil helps a ton. So yeah, be patient.
So Joel Hernandez has had both eyebrows pierced with curved barbell for over a year.
Okay.
Do we downsize the length with another shorter curved barbell or to a straight one?
Stick with the curve. You've already healed that pattern, or that basically a pattern of how the scar tissue is sitting there. So it's going to want to sit in the same position. If you had a curve and then you put it straight, see how it would almost push all that tissue out, and it increases the risk of a rejection. So keep a curved one. Curves work way better in eyebrows than straight ones do.
Juno had to take out their steak bites after around 8 weeks, and it seemed like they were infected, but there's no issues now anymore. How long do we have to wait to get them re-pierced?
Once the piercing is out, you're going to want to give it at least a minimum of a month. First of all, you want all the scabs to kind of go away, and you want that scar tissue to go away as much as you possibly can. Sometimes Mederma, there's different other scar tissue removers, but massaging, breaking down that scar tissue, and that's when you're going to be able to get to that point where you can get it re-pierced. If it feels hard in there, you're not ready. If it still has that huge redness from that old piercing, like you can see where the scar tissue was, it's going to stay visible. So make it look as normal as possible. So it's kind of tricky, but you got to be patient with these things. The better your skin looks, the better the piercing will look too.
2:36 a.m. wants to know, when should a person downsize a rook?
You don't have to downsize rooks. Sometimes if you're pierced with a ring, which I don't suggest you do, they're going to have to start with the oversized ring, and then you can put a smaller one in there once the swelling and everything's gone down. But it's going to be a minimum, probably like 3 or 4 months. But if you put too short of a bar in a rook, a lot of times it pulls the bead up inside and you can't even see the bead. So leaving a standard size in there is totally okay, in my opinion, for the rook, unless it's moving around too much. And like I said, if it's healed, go ahead and downsize, but 3 to 4 months probably.
Will Jones got a helix piercing about a year ago.
Okay.
And it got so irritated that the upper ear is permanently swollen. They have since got it re-pierced and are wondering if there's anything they can do about the scar tissue that's up there, making it so thick.
Not a ton. I mean, there's scar tissue remover, but if it was really swollen and you had to build up a scar tissue and then they pierce over that kind of like solidifies and kind of keeps it in there. So in my opinion, you almost would probably need to take the piercing out, kind of massage it. Maybe vitamin E oil can actually break down scar tissue as well. You would almost have to talk to a dermatologist or a doctor to see what you can do. Cartilage is kind of tricky. I mean, Jared, what do you know about like cauliflower ear? Because that's kind of where we're going.
Absolutely. It is very similar. It could be. I know that I do jujitsu and MMA, and it's super common. Like when you take trauma to your ear, it actually swells. It fills with fluid. And then even once the fluid drains, it usually stays thick and kind of weird and wrinkly. So
but there is some treatments for it, isn't there?
There's surgical issues, but I think it's straight plastic surgery where they're just, and there's things you can do when it first happens. There's treatments where they'll like even sew it shut front to back.
Okay.
So that it doesn't fill up with, but I mean, these are the kinds of things you go to a doctor for immediately. Noticing problems. So I don't know.
So, I mean, if it's building up, I mean, talk to your doctor is going to be your best bet. I wish I had a better answer for you on that one, but I don't really know what we can do for cartilage once it starts to ice.
Yeah, because I mean, just massage and the basics, but
but I mean, like people will come in who have full ears full of piercings, and you can tell it's just thicker all the way up because of all the, the trauma.
Basically.
That's what it is. The good trauma.
Chantel says, "Hey Scott, I have developed a small bump on the inside of my nose piercing, and my mom told me to squeeze it. But I'm not so sure that's the right thing to do. What's your advice?"
You're absolutely right. Don't do it. Number one, it's going to hurt really, really bad. Number two, the bump is not a pimple. That is an irritation bump. And by trying to pop it or squeeze it, you're irritating it more, which will cause the bump to get bigger. It may look like it's better that day, but number one, it's going to hurt really bad, and you're going to double the size of that bump. So stop messing with it. If you have a ring in there, maybe put a stud in there because it won't move around as much, and that'll allow it to go back to normal fairly soon. So
I have heard people giving that advice. We've even had comments on the videos where some people are like, "I've squeezed my bumps and it's no big deal. It always works." You know what I mean? So it's a common misbelief.
It's the same thing I was talking about earlier. Some people have problems, some people don't. And just because you got away with it and didn't have any issues doesn't mean it's a good idea. You got lucky is what it is, because irritation bump and popping something is an irritation. That's, It's not like there's something stuck inside there. Your body's been irritated and you're creating a barrier, scar tissue to protect it.
It's trying to push the piercing away.
It looks like a pimple, but it's not a pimple. It's scar tissue. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Son of Itaro says, of course, lost my place. I'm back. My snake bite piercing has been embedded for a few days. I got it on Saturday and it's been swollen and sore since. So we have a new piercing that's sinking in. What's this mean, Scott?
Now, snake bites, we're talking like lip piercings here. If the bead in the front is getting pulled in, then you need to seek out your piercer and get a longer bar because you're just overswelling it. Now, on the inside of your lip, it's real common for the disc to go into your lip and embed and create a little bit of a pocket. You're going to be swollen generally 3 to 5 days. After that, the swelling should kind of dissipate because your body's kind of given up on the swelling, trying to push it out, and then the bar is going to be long enough again. That pocket's normal. You actually want that pocket to develop a little bit because it pulls it away from your teeth and your gums. Otherwise, if it's rubbing right up against your teeth and gums, you're having nothing but problems. So hopefully it's just a little bit on the inside, and it's going to feel a little raw. That's normal, but just as long as you don't have to really pop it out, or if it's getting sucked too far in, that's kind of the situation. If you haven't been taking anything for swelling, take stuff for swelling. Ibuprofen, Aleve, or Advil, and then ice water, popsicles, ice cream, kind of the fun foods.
Keep it cool.
Keep it cool.
Mr. Bean wants to know, generally, will piercers order jewelry for you? I want to get pierced with a specific BVLA piece, and I don't think my shop has it in stock. Is that common, or what are the things that affect that?
So as piercers, there's a lot of different jewelry manufacturers out there, and we don't carry every single brand. And there's a lot of manufacturers out there now who are so popular they don't even take on new clients. So, like I know I can't even get an account with them. There's a waiting list to get on with that type of a thing. So I couldn't even order it even if I wanted to. So not every shop can do it, and you have to search around for BVLA retailers or whatever brand you're looking for. If I can get it, like I might be able to offer comparable different styles, but if you're looking for that specific thing, you need to look for that retailer.
All right. Carl Robinson says, first off, the guy reading the questions out, love the mustache. Thank you very much.
Pretty awesome, isn't it, guys?
For my question, I had an eyebrow piercing that was red and irritated. It doesn't hurt, but it just looks off. What should I do?
Maybe check with your jewelry. If it could be lower quality jewelry, you might be having a slight reaction to it. You might have just scarred and you can kind of see it. If it's a little bit thin, that's going to leave a little bit of darkness or discoloration on there. If you have a larger size in there, if you had a 14 gauge or 16 gauge, maybe see about putting something slightly thinner in there, and that might be able to kind of calm it down. But don't use any scar tissue remover, because I know that gets rid of discoloration, but you have that fistula, that tube of scar tissue, and you don't want to get rid of that if you're still trying to wear your piercing. So that would not work in this situation. The best thing you can do is just keep it calm and maybe downsize or find different jewelry if that could be the case.
Will says, hey, Scott, what do you think about people with stretched ears getting skin tone plugs and then putting holes in them to wear regular earrings?
It is an awesome, awesome idea, and I'm glad you brought this up. A lot of people get really disappointed when they stretch their ears because they can't wear some of these older earrings and normal earrings to look normal again, normal to society. I mean, it's normal to us, but yeah, you get these like the silicone plugs, and they look like they're made to hide it, but it's only a flare on one side. So it's thin enough to easily put a puncture in there, and you can wear normal earrings and even put the backing, the butterfly back on the back.
That's
so
fun.
It gives you a lot of options. I mean, you could do like a double piercing. If you had 1-inch plugs, you could create designs with small earrings or put the normal one, or you can do like a French hook style where you have a dangle coming off there again. It gives you all the options.
That's kind of cool. I hadn't heard of that before.
Yeah, it's a really cool idea. I know there's Omerica plugs. They make a wood plug where there's like a little foam type insert, so you can actually wear these types of things inside their wood plugs
through a wooden plug
with like a little foam thing made for that style earring. So yeah, there's a lot of new cool ideas. I'm glad you brought that up because we're always looking for little tips and tricks and making our piercing more fun, more options.
That's a good option.
Yes.
There. Cucumber Joseph had snake bites done about 2 months ago. Is it time to downsize?
Probably. If you have post sticking way out, definitely downsize. Yeah, otherwise you can do damage to your teeth. Go get those shortened up.
Lauren from Ireland says, hey guys, I got my Helix pierced in January. I've had a bump since March. It's going down slowly and steadily, but would it be okay to get another Helix done at this point? Not right next to the one with the bump.
Yeah. You took the words right out of my mouth. I was like, not right next to it, but if you were on the other side or you're far enough away, a couple centimeters or so, it's not going to put pressure or irritation on that area. The nice thing is like if you had your Helix up top and you just want one lower that's far enough away, you got to heal this piercing, which kind of continues to heal the one up above. And that's what I would do.
Excellent. Rita says, hi, Scott. I'm getting my nostril pierced on Friday. What should I look out for before going in? And how's the healing process in general?
Look for a good piercer. Look on reviews. Listen to what people say, because a good piercer is going to give you a good experience. And the cheapest piercer or the ones who just don't care, it's going to hurt. It's going to be a negative, and you're not going to like the piercing. So find a good piercer. As far as the pain goes, like if I grab a couple hairs and pull them out, it hurts a little bit, but it's not that bad. It's all in your head. And as far as the healing goes, if you take care of it really good, it's going to seem healed in a month, maybe 2 months if you catch a towel or something on it. That's the biggest issue is the towels.
Tori Brantley has a problem that is becoming more and more common.
Okay.
She has a curved barbell in her doth. Sure said it would help it heal better, but now we've watched your video and you've specifically told us that's bad.
Mm-hmm.
Do I take it out? Like, what do I do now that I realize it's not what you recommend?
It depends on where you're at. It seems to be the common occurrence of this show is like what I said earlier. Some people can wear these and heal them up and it's not a problem. Some people have major problems. If you're not having a problem, you don't need to change it up. But the thing is like, okay, let me try to show you on one of my ears here. Like if you had your doth pierced here, okay, we're looking at this, a curved barbell needs to stay at that curve because it's through the cartilage, and you always want the ring to go out like that. There's a little delay that's messing me up. And if you have a curved barbell and it curves the other way in, it heals like this, and you try to put the ring curving this way, and the bumps will get massive. So the fact that it's like the curves are constantly moving back and forth in there is what causes the problems during the healing process. If it's staying in one place and it's curved outwards, it's not an issue. But if it's curved in, it's going to be really tough. Then you might want to think about changing to the ring. But the doth piercing gets so swollen, sometimes it's really hard to change it up in the middle.
Right. And so if you're already like this and things are going fairly well, just make sure it stays the right direction and it should be okay.
Correct. But if it's constantly turning, or you're getting the bumps on this, or like the bumps are kind of following that bar, that's a sign of a problem. You should probably try to get a ring in, which will keep it in one position. And when things don't move around, they'll heal better. That's why the ring works better in this situation than the curve, because the ring might spin a little bit, but at least you're not changing.
Twisting it curve through there.
Yeah. That's why.
If we had a second helix infected and then took it out, how long do we wait for the re-pierce?
Once the redness, the swollen, and irritation is completely gone, I say a minimum of a month. Sometimes it's ready. Sometimes it's a couple months. If it's a lot of irritation still there and swollen, basically just kind of massage it and try to break it down to get it back to normal sooner than later. So better it looks, the better it'll heal it for you.
Kimberly says, "Hey Scott, greetings from a Canadian in Hungary."
Hi, Canadian in Hungary.
Yes,
cool.
When should we downsize snug jewelry? I got my snug done, I think 5 weeks ago, and I noticed it snagging on my hair.
Okay. Sometimes it's as little as maybe a month and a half. Generally, I tell people several months. The snug is going to stay swollen the whole time, and it's going to fluctuate a little bit. So if you consistently have way too much sticking out and it's at the month and a half, then I would say you need to downsize. But if it's like it's only just a little bit and one day it's a little bit, you got to accommodate, because it's going to go back and forth for a while. The snug is dense tissue, and it takes a while to heal. Now, every person's anatomy, like if you had a really thick snug, it's going to take longer to heal than someone who has that paper thin snug. So it varies from person to person. But if it's causing problems, you might want to downsize.
Gabriella wants a belly button piercing. What are your thoughts in general on navel piercings?
They're great piercings. The unfortunate thing is right now the higher waisted pants are more in style, and that causes so many issues during the healing process of a navel piercing or belly button piercing. If you rub up against it, it's going to be probably a year-long healing process. If you have lower rise pants and nothing's rubbing up against it, you can heal this up in 3 to 6 months. So it all depends on the style of clothes you wear, and that's kind of what determines how this heals. The other thing is swimming. No swimming for a minimum of a month with most piercings, and navel piercings.
Not an exception.
Yeah, not really an exception.
So we're moving into pool time of year.
That's right. We need to keep that in mind, people. Yep.
So Churn wants to know, can a piercing get infected after it's all healed up, or can a piercing only get infected during that initial healing process?
Good question. If a piercing gets ripped or torn, it becomes an open wound and can definitely become infected again. I've noticed sometimes that when I get sick, piercings will inflame on me.
Okay.
It's I don't understand why, but certain piercings will start flaring up and kind of getting extra swollen and sensitive, creating extra crusties. It's not an infection, but for me it says, hey, start taking your daily C or your vitamin C stuff and boost your immune system. And if I don't, I'll get a cold or flu or whatever might be following shortly behind it.
So it's almost like a warning sign for you.
Yeah, if you listen to your body, if things start acting up, it's like
maybe your immune system's about to get hit.
So I just hit it with generally helps me out quite a bit. So that would be the reason why, in my opinion. Otherwise, if it got hit, bumped, or irritated really bad, it's going to seem infected, but it's probably just really upset.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Greetings from a Portuguese person.
Hi.
Just wondering, why is it okay to instantly stretch your lobes just after piercing them, but you can't do it after you've had them pierced for a while? What's the difference?
Okay. When you have a fully established healed piercing, you have that tube of scar tissue in there, and that scar tissue we need to slowly stretch. And as we stretch, the tissue will regenerate. Okay. So you stretch and you give it a month, month and a half, or month and a half to 2 months, and it relaxes. We can go again and it relaxes. Now, if we go too fast, it rips and tears and creates micro lines of scar tissue, which is really, really difficult to stretch. And that's what creates that discoloration and blowouts on your ear. Now, if I was just to pierce you at a fresh 4 gauge and stretch you right to a 0 gauge, there's no tube of scar tissue there. So you're not creating all those micro tears. You made a fresh incision and you're just stretching that incision a little. It doesn't do the damage in the same way.
That makes a lot of sense, and it's something that people don't probably consider. But once you heal that scar tissue, it's hard and doesn't want to stretch.
Correct.
But if you're doing it all at once, right at the moment of the piercing, your lobe is stretchy because there's no scar tissue.
Correct. Like for instance, there's something called burling or genital beading, where guys will sometimes get like little beads implanted under the skin on like the top side of the penis.
Okay.
And a lot of times we'll actually just do piercings where we'll pierce at like a 10 gauge and we're able to stretch to a larger size to where the size of the bead, put it in there, and then the skin will just close right up on it and they're healed up really, really fast. So that just shows how stretchy and pliable new piercings are. You couldn't do that on a healed piercing. You couldn't,
put a big bead through a small hole.
And I can't stretch it up and try to put something in there. It wouldn't work. And it can only work with fresh piercings because that tissue is a little stretchable and
then the piercing holes themselves just completely go away.
Correct.
Interesting.
So
such a diverse world. This whole piercing thing.
It really is.
Denise has double earlobe piercings that are over 35 years old, and they still get crusty from time to time. Is that okay? And what do you recommend for cleaning the jewelry?
It happens. I mean, think about you have a tube of basically a tube or a hole going through your ear. When you're in the shower, you have dead skin cells, soaps, maybe makeups, shampoos, soaps, conditioners, all the other stuff we put in there, and that stuff's kind of getting in there. So that can kind of come out and create crusties on your ear. Your body's also going to try to repel that stuff out of that hole. So that's kind of where the crusties are coming from. It could be reactions to the metal. A lot of people change their earrings out, and if you're putting different metals, you might have a reaction to brass or copper or the steel. It depends on what you're wearing and how you're wearing it. Some people don't wear earrings for long periods of time and be able to put them in there, and you're re-irritating your piercing, and that's going to create crusties and things to go on there too. So,
okay, so if you just don't wear it for a few months, maybe you're slightly irritating it.
Because it's trying to close. It's not closing, but it's shrinking to its natural state. And then you put it in there and you just stretched it out, and the body's going, whoa, something's going on here. Let's see what we can do. And
send some blood cells down that way. Angela has a question. Hey, Scott, I have a question regarding eyebrow piercings. Do horizontal eyebrow piercings have a higher rejection rate than the traditional ones that go through the eyebrow?
It's a yes and no answer for you. Generally, I'm going to say yes, because any surface piercing can reject out easier because we're not going through a natural ridge. Okay. What I mean by that is, this is the best example I can give, is this little web in your hand here. Okay. This is like a natural ridge. It's probably not going to reject. It's going to scar, not look good, but that's a natural ridge. Now, if I went right on top of my hand, you can see how if I pinch the skin up, it naturally wants to go back down, and the body's going to reject it out. So if you don't have the appropriate jewelry in there for a surface bar, the chance of rejection is much higher. Now, the reason I said it's a yes and no answer is because some eyebrows aren't necessarily pierceable, where the skin's so taut and there's no ridge, where it's almost the same thing as a surface piercing. So therefore, they kind of fall into the same category once in a while.
Okay, so correct jewelry, correct anatomy.
Correct jewelry, correct anatomy. But if you had the correct eyebrow, like the perfect anatomy for that, for a horizontal or the normal vertical, the vertical is going to be a faster, easier heal and will probably last longer than the horizontal.
Okay, so in general, it's a little more stable of a piercing.
Yep. Excellent question. Great questions today. Thanks, everyone.
Our next question, my piercer started my tragus with a curved barbell, and I keep hearing it doesn't heal properly. Is this true? And I got it changed to a straight bar after 7 weeks, and the irritation bump is already healing. So it looks like
yes,
it is true.
Well, I think the thing is with a curved bar is the bar is so long, and the weight of the beads, it causes it to rotate back and forth. I've never seen wear a curved bar in their tragus, that is the appropriate size.
Okay, so it's always oversized and wiggling.
So it's probably
in there.
oversized, and the fact that like the beads, like it can actually rock back and forth, so you're pulling the crusties through. It's almost equivalent of having a ring in there. I mean, I'll still pierce with a ring, but generally the straight bars work way better. And you're right. You put the straight bar in there, things stop moving around, stop getting irritated, bumps are going to go away.
It's kind of exactly what you were saying with the doth earlier, that the curved barbell, because it can spin and that's contorting the hole, basically, that's going to just be trouble.
We're trying to get stationary jewelry as best we can.
Make it hold still, then you're going to heal fast. All right. Keep it still. Will wants to know, how effective are no-pull discs for removing year-old scar tissue? Do you generally see those no-pull discs being used on scar tissue or just bumps?
I try to get more specific with your question. Like, what scar tissue are you talking about? Because if you don't have the piercing in, the no-pull disc doesn't really work. But if you've had like a bump on your nose for a year and it's not going away, give it a shot. Those no-pull discs are super cheap. It's a little tacky to look at it for a minute, but if you can wear that for a month, they can work. I don't know about super old scars.
And even if it looks weird, I mean, bumps look weird. So exactly. It doesn't matter.
If it's a chance to get rid of it, go for it. It's not going to hurt. But like I said, if it's just a scar and you don't have the piercing in, the no-pull disc isn't going to necessarily do anything either. So, yeah.
Anna says, I did end up changing a lobe piercing too soon because the jewelry I had lost the end.
Okay.
I did end up getting the bump like you guys were just talking about. Is there anything I can do to help it go down?
Just continue cleaning it. You can use the emu oil that'll help calm it down because that's all it is. It just got irritated. So once you stop irritating it, the bump will go back to normal. A lot of us worry too much about these bumps. We should. I mean, we want to take care of our piercing and get rid of the bump, but constantly fidgeting with it and trying to take care of it is irritating it. And that's what we need to keep in mind. It's like less is more. Just do it once a day, maybe twice a day max, just keeping it clean, keep crusties off there and leave it be. Make sure your jewelry's not too tight. It's high quality jewelry and just don't mess with it.
Bogdan says, hey, Scott, I have 16 millimeter stretched lobes, but the left one got a bit thinner. I want to stretch them further. What can I do to prevent it from thinning?
Okay. Easiest thing I'd say is be easy on your stretching. When you stretch, it really shouldn't technically hurt. Now, and the other thing is you might be able to start stretching with like teardrop shapes or creating your own teardrop style plugs. Because sometimes when you put, like instead of having a round circle, I'm going to draw here in a second. And if you have that point, the point creates the weaker spot and therefore kind of stretches more in that direction than perfectly symmetrical. Now, for instance, if we go to the drawing board here, if I had a take some sort of Teflon tape, I can kind of create a natural teardrop. Now, this right up in here.
You'd wrap all the way around the big plug, right?
What's that?
You would go all the way around.
Yes, I would wrap all the way around. So it's a good, solid, good call. But this is the weak point right here. So this is where you're going to see the stretching kind of go up. So you can kind of point and direct where the stretch goes. It doesn't always work, but the big thing is just massaging your ear and being careful and watching it, All
right.
So, yeah.
So, and if you're going to do that, basically you point the point in the direction you want it to go.
If your ear's thin on the bottom, you're getting it to point up or out because you're trying to follow the ear up this way instead of straight up.
Wherever it's thick and you've got space. So
hopefully the teardrops can kind of work. And a proper stretch when your ears are that thin should never hurt. The next size should fall into place. I can't stress that enough. Like, it's just a little bit. That's how your ears are getting thinner. Be careful.
Just a little at a time.
And massage them. Keep that blood flow going in there. That'll help. I don't know if it'll regenerate, how to keep that area alive and keep the blood flowing.
Potter wants to know if you can get cauliflower ear from ear piercings. Have you ever seen that?
Yes. It does happen. Sometimes the ear cartilage will collapse on itself. I mean, to be honest with you, many, many years ago, I didn't even perform industrial piercings on minors because of there's always that possibility of the ear collapsed. And this happening to someone who's 16 years old, not really even old enough to consent to do this. And then you're deforming their ear for the rest of their life. It was like, it just made me nervous. But the reason I do it now is it's pretty rare for that to happen. And they're getting it done. It needs to be done the right way.
Right. So you'd rather do it correctly than throw it to the
lessen
next
that
guy.
chance instead of having some, Joe Schmo kind of just doing these things out of the garage and hoping for the best.
And it seems like a lack of like the fact that you use really good needles with the Teflon and all that. It seems like that will minimize the chances of the collapsed ear.
And that's a really good point. I've never really thought about before, but I haven't seen it in years. It was probably 10, 15, 20 years ago that we saw this on a regular basis, but we were using externally threaded jewelry.
Right.
Really poor quality needles. Well, not the best needles, but it's like today I don't see that because of the quality of the metals, the sharpness, the aftercare, just the general knowledge has stopped the.
Now, just to let people know, I'm curious, like how hard it was to push a needle. You're saying like back in the day when the needles were crappy.
Yes.
How much easier it is to push them now? Like, can you feel a difference, or is this like an academic thing? We just know they're covered in Teflon and that makes it better, or?
How do I know this? This is how I know this. By the end of the day, 20 years ago, my finger would have an indent and it would almost be sore from pushing those needles through belly buttons and earlobes. It shouldn't be that difficult, but it would sometimes hurt my finger. There were things called needle pushers because they couldn't get the needle through. How terrifying is that?
Right. Like you got to put a handle on.
I'm going to get pierced. I hope he can get the needle through.
What? And now that's not an issue. You don't have a sore finger anymore.
Now it's just like I don't even have to push. They're so sharp. They're Teflon coated. It just goes through. And I get a lot of customers go, "Wow, that was way less painful than my nipple piercing or like I'll do a nipple piercing and they'll say it's less painful than a nostril piercing in another shop." I'm like, how is that possible? The nipple's that cluster of nerves. The nostril's one of the easiest, and it just goes to show the quality of needle and supplies is everything.
Actually matters. People don't think about that.
So yeah, can the cauliflower ear kind of thing happen? And from traumatic bad jewelry and bad, so when you go to the cheapest place or you have your friends do it, there's a extreme higher risk of these things happening.
Of that kind of thing occurring.
This enlightenment happened right here. I didn't even put two and two together until you brought it up, and it just makes sense.
That's why we're all just advancing piercing knowledge here by having these giant group discussions. Chloe had a navel pierced for like 3 to 4 weeks, and the top hole still looks red, but is not infected.
Be careful of your pants. Make sure they're not rubbing right up against there. If you have the higher waisted pants, it's going to take a long time for that redness to go away. So that's the general problem these days is the pants. It's like, oh, mine only go just below it. But when you sit down and if it presses up against it, that's the problem.
And that's something you've actually seen as styles change, like
visibly. It was amazing. Like back when I first did pants were really, really popular, and people were spending a year plus to heal it up. Granted, it was rings, then I made the pants rubbing right up against it, and then all of a sudden in the 90s, when the low-rise pants came into play, everything just healed. It was like instantly, like, what happened? What did we do different? And it was like 3 or 4 months, everyone just seemed to heal.
Just it worked. And then now as the high-waisted pants are coming back
my
in.
belly button won't heal. It won't heal.
Belly button troubles.
It's your pants. It's your pants.
Every time. Because you wear them every day for how many hours a day?
Exactly.
Is that poking and rubbing?
It's like when we sit down, it moves up and down. It's pressing. It's distorting tissue.
So just try to take care of it, Chloe, and it should relax for you.
Correct.
Edwin got a left high nostril pierced and overswelled. So they took it out.
Yep.
How long should he wait to be re-pierced?
Give it over a month. If it wasn't in that long, it doesn't take long for all that tissue to go back to normal. You took it out because it's overswelled.
They took it out.
That's impressive because like trying to get tools and things way up. How'd you do that?
No, I think Edwin is telling us that the piercer took it out.
Oh,
that the piercer was like, this is overswelled. I need to bail. And
that's a bummer because a lot of times you can just put a longer bar in there. It happens once in a while. It's really hard to judge the high nostrils. And for you piercers out there, I generally do mine at a 3/8 minimum. I mean, it's just like long. You just can't tell, and you don't know how much people swell. And it's like sometimes they'll even go up to like a 7/16, which is super crazy long.
How do you make that decision? You just like look at their nose and think this one's thick. I need a thicker.
You just kind of you eyeball it, caliper it a little bit, and then you got to compensate for the swelling. And it's like it's going to be an antenna. I tell everyone it's good out of there. My biggest fear for those ones is if you overswell and the disc gets pulled into the skin up there, like how do you get that out?
It's tough to work that high up inside the nose.
It really is. The tools, you can't see exactly what you're doing. So it needs to be oversized, then downsized in the future. If you overswell and you catch it in time, a lot of times we can follow it through with a taper and put the longer bar in there to accommodate for that swelling if that's the case.
So, but if we lost it, how long should Edwin wait to re-pierce that?
Month.
A month.
Probably
and make sure
a month.
It looks clear.
Yeah, if it's still red and swollen, wait longer, but a month should be enough.
Excellent. Ghost Winters says, I have 9 piercings, which have been done in the last 2 months. Mm-hmm. And now I'm looking at finishing off with a brow piercing, but I'm worried about it rejecting after watching advice on YouTube. Any advice?
Yes. I'm sorry, that was 9 piercings.
9 piercings in 2 months.
That's too much.
Slow down.
Yeah, slow down. I generally tell people not to have more than 4 or 5 piercings healing on them at once. And you're double that at this point and looking at getting more. What happens is your immune system can only handle so much. So the healing process gets exponentially longer. There are open wounds longer. You're more prone to infections and just overall rejection and problems. So I would stop getting pierced until things seem more healed up for you. Be multivitamins if you're not on them already, because zinc supplements boost that immune system so you can heal these things up.
And people don't think about it, but tattoos matter too. Like if I have currently healing tattoos and then piercings, like yes. Is that all concurrent also? Like
everything. I mean, one of the things I upset most people with when they come through the doors, they'll come in with a big cast on their leg. And like, I'm here to get my nostril pierced. I'm like, what do you got going on with your leg? Like, oh, I broke it, or I had an operation, I had my ACL, or whatever. Like, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to pierce you right now because your body needs to heal that major operation. Why would we do something, create an open wound and take longer for that major, that needs to heal. Your body needs to focus on that. And it's the same thing with piercings and tattoos. If you have a tattoo on your arm, like, hey, I want to get like 4 more piercings. I'll be like, no,
slow down,
and people get mad at me, but you got to realize we don't make money turning you down. We're looking out in your best interest.
Right.
If for me to say no to you because you're healing too much, I'm turning money away.
Right. You're being a really nice guy. They shouldn't be mad at you.
There's piercers like, I'll take it. Yeah, sure. I'll keep doing piercings. I'll take all this money. And it's like, we should be looking out in your best interest. And if someone says it, take that to heart.
Yeah. So hold off on the eyebrow, heal these 9 up.
I totally would. I love getting pierced, but I would hold off.
Leon downsized their anti-tragus and it got a bad irritation bump. It was 5 months after the piercing that we downsized it. We went back to the bigger side. How long does it take for that area to heal? And when should we try the downsize again?
Generally, in a situation like this, when you have a bump and you had to go back up to the larger size, once it seems like you've been good for like a month, like the bump's been gone and the bar's just long for a month and you're not having problems anymore, then I would say downsize. If you downsize within a week or 2 of just getting rid of the bump, it can come back so quick. So make sure it's established and comfortable, and then I would go to the downsize.
And Ghost Winners just also said, love your channel, Scott. Keep it up, man. You're an awesome guy. Thanks for your videos. They've been greatly reassuring.
Thank you for tuning in and watching the videos. I love doing this. And if it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't be here. So thank you.
Thank you guys for watching. Kate wants to know, how do you know if you have the correct anatomy for a bridge piercing? I can grip a lot of skin there, she says, but I can't tell if I have a big enough ridge. So what are we pinching for? What are we feeling?
Okay. Now, when I do this, you're going to have to talk to you have to have enough skin to grab a hold of. Yes. But when you turn your head sideways and if you push down like this, and there's no cushion, it's just right to the bone. Just because I can separate and pull it away from the bone doesn't mean it's not going to push into the bone. So there has to be enough cushion this way as well as loose enough tissue to grab this way.
So you're saying kind of like poke at it and it should feel like there's a little squishy.
My bridge doesn't press up against the bone at all. It doesn't distort the tissue. It's just straight through in its natural state. If I were to do the piercing, it seems like it would pull the skin out because the bar's in the way of the bone. That you're not a good candidate for.
It's just going to migrate its way out.
Yes. So,
all right. Hopefully that helps, Kate.
They're tricky. Like, My counter staff here love watching me check for bridges because I do like a little tap and a little squeeze and a tap. And I don't know why they love it. Like, oh, we got to watch them check for a bridge. Yeah, they think it's hilarious. So
just poking and prodding on the spot.
Yep, pretty much.
When can I change the jewelry on an earlobe piercing? Since I got mine done and it doesn't swell anymore, but it hurts just a tiny bit when the outside of the piercing touches the lobe.
Okay. Sometimes it's the metal of the jewelry itself on the outside could be causing a reaction. If you have a prong setting or something that's a little bit more rough, like a flower multi-gem, sometimes those can cause a little irritation. That would be an issue. If you change your jewelry, if it doesn't have crusties and it seems healed, you're probably healed and you're fine to change it. Just listen to your body. If you put jewelry in and it doesn't like it, back to the comfortable stuff.
How do we know when a nostril piercing is healed so we can change the jewelry? It's been 5 months.
It's probably healed.
Probably time.
If you have a huge bump on your piercing, changing to a ring is the worst thing you can do. But if you have a bump on your piercing after 5 months in your nostril, talk to your piercer. Maybe your jewelry needs to be adjusted, whether it's shortened or lengthened, or figure out why that bump is still there. Nostrils generally take about a month to 2 months to heal up.
Jessica also has a question about eyebrow piercings. There's some dark discoloration. Is it because of the jewelry? We've been having a lot of problems with it, even more than their cheek piercings. So it's acting up.
It depends on how long you have your piercing. Sometimes you'll see a darker line if the piercing is rejecting. I'm not trying to scare you, but eyebrow piercings can reject. So if it seems like the bar's longer than normal, or if it seems like it's coming out, that would be a sign of rejection. Is that a little darker color? Possibility is lower quality jewelry. Sometimes your skin's a little bit thinner there and you can just see the bar through it. But yeah, my concern would be rejection if you see a darker line going around that area.
Raven Grenade says, "Hi, Scott. Love you from Canada."
Hi.
When we love you from America.
Yeah.
Do you still recommend using emu oil for healed piercings? And if so, how do you recommend applying it?
Yes, absolutely. Once in a while, I was mentioning earlier, if I start getting sick or piercings, like healed piercings will start acting up, emu oil is my go-to. Like for me, it's my nipples, my doth piercing, and sometimes my nostrils. Now with emu oil, all you do is you just wash your hands really well with soap and water. I mean, you got to start with a clean surface. And then you're going to take your emu oil and put just the smallest drop, as small as you can put on your finger, because a little bit goes a long, long ways. And I directly apply it to my piercings as needed that way. You can put it on a Q-tip, but the thing is the Q-tip is like a sponge, and each time you drop it, it's going to absorb, and you're going to go through way too much emu oil. Excuse me. And then the other concern is that you don't want to use cotton swabs because the cotton fibers can wrap around your piercing and get stuck in your jewelry. So I just apply it directly to clean hands.
Perfect. And that's only if you're having a problem. There'd be no reason to just apply that to a healed piercing that was acting right, correct? There's no reason to like maintenance.
I want to say something about that too, because I've had so many clients come through and it's been like, oh, I've had my earlobes pierced and I'm still cleaning them every day. I'm like, why? You know, you don't need to. Like if your piercings are healed up, if we say 6 to 8 weeks, you're healed. You don't need to use that cleaning solution every day. You can if you want. It's not hurting, but it's a waste.
Right.
You know, it's saline solution. All it is it's salines because your body is an open wound and you're trying to allow that new tissue to heal a little faster and you're trying to flush things out. But if it's a tube of scar tissue, it's preventing germs from getting in there. That saline is acting just like water. In the shower or bath, just regular water is all you really need. Now, if it got ripped or torn or if it got extra irritated, you can go back to cleaning your piercing. But if your piercing seems healed, you don't need to do the everyday aftercare like you would for a fresh piercing. There's jewelry maintenance, but not everyday aftercare.
All right. So keep the crusties off, but it shouldn't be as frequently.
Correct.
After a little while.
And every piercing heals different. Some piercings take a year to heal. Some of them are healed up in a month and a half, 2 months.
Monica has an interesting point. Some piercers in her country recommend an antibiotic spray to prevent infection and to speed up the healing. And in her personal experience, she feels like her navel completely healed in 12 days because of this spray. What do you think?
Okay, there is no chemical or drug in the world that can heal your piercing for you. Only you can heal it. So the healthier you are and the better you take care of it, the faster it's going to heal. A lot of people think that their piercing's healed. Mine was only healed in 3 days and it was done. Some people just don't get crusties, but your body still has to form that fistula, and our bodies take a certain amount of time. This is basic
and a fistula
biology.
is what?
That tube of scar tissue.
Okay.
You know, so it takes a while for that vein to get thick enough and build up enough to prevent infection.
To actually be strong.
It may seem healed, but you're not healed. Now, I don't like the antibiotic stuff. It's the more we need to let our body heal it up naturally on its own. The more antibiotics and stuff we keep using, the more immune we are getting to all these different antibiotic strains.
That's true.
You know, so overuse of this, in my opinion, is a bad thing. You know, save it for when it's really needed. You know, if you take care of it, it's not going to get infected. So just take care of it properly, and then something like this isn't necessary. It's only necessary if you get the infection.
And I think that interesting point you made, that it just because it looks okay and isn't red doesn't mean it's healed. It just means it's
100%.
not necessarily angry.
And again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a medical professional. I'm a professional body piercer, and this is my experience. It's just our bodies are amazing. They can heal it. You don't need the chemical or drugs to heal it. That's where everyone's like, oh, I need to put peroxide on there and alcohol and neosporin and this ointment and aquaphor. And like, no, our bodies handle this no problem.
Right.
Let it.
It's the same as if you got a paper cut, just let your body do the work and fix it up.
Exactly.
Very interesting. T.I. Washington says, hey, Scott, I got a transverse lobe done over a year ago, and it snagged on something in December and got ripped out. Less awesome. How can I have it properly heal again? I guess is the moral of the question.
Okay. First thing we need to talk about is, what is a transverse lobe? It's a crazy word, and it's an awesome, awesome piercing. A transverse lobe. Okay, first of all, a lobe piercing is going to go straight into the earlobe, straight from front to back, like so. A transverse lobe is like where you go from side to side, from here all the way across to here. And a lot of times you're going to wear a barbell or a curved barbell through there. So you're just going to see two beads. Super awesome. Now, the fact that it got ripped out means it ripped this way or that way. I don't know what the scar tissue is like. Way out? Is it a flap? Is it? I don't know.
Right. So in general, if you have some heavy scar tissue on a lobe, what would you do about it? Like,
did they say they had it a year?
Yeah, it was done over a year ago, and then it ripped out in December. So
you've developed the full fistula through there, so you're going to feel that scar tissue in there. You're going to need to get some Mederma, some scar tissue remover, massage it, break it down as much as you can, and it might be several months, you know, but trying to pierce through that scar tissue might be rough. It's going to kind of make the needle drift on the needle, kind of not follow the path as easy. So the more normal you get your ear looking and feeling, the easier it's going to be for your piercer to redo it. It's a tough question. I would have to see it.
Right. It's just really specific.
Sorry,
in general, you can kind of massage it down, I guess.
Feel it, yeah.
Stork's Deck says, my sister got an ear piercing, and she says that it hurts. And I don't know what to suggest for her. It's her first time. So is this stuff supposed to hurt, Scott?
She did put a hole in her body. So, I mean, you're going to feel something. It's going to be a little tender. I guess the way I explain it to people is, you get your ear, you get a piercing, it's going to be a pinch. It's like a shot. It's a hypodermic needle. Yeah, it hurts a little bit, and it's going to be a little sore. But for a couple of weeks, maybe a month after, it's like a bruise. You know, if you bump it or hit it or it rotates, you're going to feel it. And it doesn't feel pleasant, but it shouldn't be painful. You know, if I have a bruise, it's like, ow. You know, that's what you should be. If it ever hurts, that's not right.
That might be something.
That might be something
serious wrong.
Maybe you need to be cleaning your piercings better, getting the crusties off there. Maybe the jewelry's too short. But yeah, it's going to be a little tender. It's the price we pay for beauty.
It is the price. Ella says that the piercers in her state only use butterfly back studs after piercing lobes. How can we heal that properly? Or maybe we could bring in our own different jewelry, and that's likely not going to work, right?
Probably not going to work. It's a possibility, but
most shops don't like that, correct?
A professional shop isn't going to use that. There's other shops. I can almost guarantee you're going to be able to find a shop somewhere who's not going to pierce you with that.
Right.
You know, so do your homework, try to figure out who's going to pierce with a labret. Say, I don't want butterfly, I want a labret in my ear. I mean, if they pierce lips, they have that jewelry on hand. Say, I'm willing to pay for it. They might be being cheap and saying, I'd rather just use the butterfly backs because
It's
it doesn't
without a
cost me as
doubt
much money.
cheaper, right?
And say, hey, I'll pay the price to have the proper jewelry put in.
Now, say you had to get a butterfly back. Our biggest concern is that butterfly back getting sucked in, correct? So that's what we'd want to watch for.
They're kind of one size fits all, but there are piercers out there who will pierce with the needle, put the butterfly back in, and don't clasp it as hard, which is a little better than using the piercing gun. The piercing guns can be contaminated. They can spread bloodborne pathogens, all kinds of diseases, things like that. But if you pierce with a needle, it's a single use, so it's a little safer. But the butterfly backs don't accommodate room for swelling. And the way the butterfly backs, they're kind of shaped, there's all kinds of room for bacteria and germs and things like that to get in there, which, you know, is not safe. You need to be able to completely clean off your jewelry. That's where the flat disc and the straight post, you're able to clean it completely off. So the butterfly backs are terrible. Find someone who will pierce you with a lobrette. Even a captive bead ring or a ring would be better.
All right. Carl, we were talking earlier about having an irritated piercing, says that they did get their jewelry from Spencer's. So it's possible that that is the problem. They can pierce and see if they can get something better. Do you have to be careful about jewelry that you get at the mall, or can I trust that? What do you think about that?
Buying jewelry at the mall from a place that doesn't do piercings is like buying from Amazon or Etsy. You're going to have some good and you're going to have some bad, but a lot of business people like that don't look at the quality of the material. They look at the margin of profit. You know, so if there's a high markup profit, they don't really care. It's like, oh, it says it's gold, but you buy stuff on Etsy and Amazon and whatnot, and sometimes they're just straight up lies. That's what I found. Like, oh, it's surgical steel. Like, well, it's a pink barbell. How do you make steel pink? It doesn't make sense. So that's what you really, really need to watch out for. And yeah.
So just kind of watch out for that kind of thing. Absolutely.
Myself, I get mil spec sheets, which means I get like a recipe sheet for all of the jewelry I have in my shop. So I look and I know exactly what we're putting in people.
This is something I think people are afraid to talk about, but there's a way to deal with it. Yes. Hey, what should I do if a piercer who I thought was great pierced something wonky or crooked? What should I say in the shop right after they show me and I notice that it's off center? So first of all, does a crooked piercer mean that a guy sucks?
Or not at all. Not at all.
What do we do? How do we bring it up if we notice? And
we are human beings. We do make mistakes. I have not done all straight piercings. Myself, I will let you know before you even look in the mirror. It's a blessing and a curse at the same time. I'm brutally honest. I'll do your piercing and be like, look, before you see it, to me, it looks a little bit crooked. If you want to redo it, I'll totally re-pierce you for free, whether I can do it now or later. But your satisfaction is my ultimate goal. So I let people know. I've also had people look in the mirror and go, does it look crooked to you? And I'm like, well, let me take a look, and I let people know. I've also had people look in the mirror and go, does it look crooked to you? And I'm like, well, let me take a look, I'm like, yes, it does. So
they'll notice it.
I own up to it. Yeah. Most of the time we'll bring it up, but sometimes it gets by us. I've had someone call, I got home and my piercing looks a little crooked. I'm not sure if, and I'm like, I stand by my work. Well, come on in. I'll take the jewelry out. We'll re-pierce you when the time's appropriate. And yeah, a good piercer makes mistakes too.
So Rach should not feel weird about bringing it up. It's not necessarily, it's not uncommon or weird for you to look in the mirror and be like, is this exactly right? Is it okay to say?
Ask them. You got to ask them right away, because sometimes we don't look in the mirror at our piercings the same way. I've had people like look at like the bridge piercing and be like, oh, it's so crooked to my. I'm like, you got to look at your face. You got to look at your eyes. You look at the big picture. It may be crooked to your bridge, but it's straight to your face, or it's this. And I explain that during marking sometimes too.
Okay.
I've also had people stand in the mirror, like looking at their belly buttons with their hip way off to the side going, I don't know, it looks crooked. I'm like, stand straight in the mirror. They're like, oh yeah. Sometimes it's as little things as that.
So have the discussion, have a conversation about
the discussion. I've also had people look in the belly, like look at a belly button piercing and say, it looks crooked to me. And sometimes the cleaning solution makes the jewelry almost stick to the skin. And we just kind of we let it relax and sit in its natural form. Like, oh, cool, it's better. But I've also looked and like, yeah, it's crooked. I'm sorry. I'll totally re-pierce you. I'll give you the discount. But yeah, a good piercer will own up to their work and make sure you're happy. Okay. Say something. So
it is okay to say something, and a good piercer should be totally cool with that and want to fix it.
Yes.
So if a piercer catches an attitude, that's a bad thing?
I think so. It's upsetting to us. I might be like bummed out, like, damn, I'm sorry. I didn't, You know, it's like, we're not perfect. I want to give you the best experience I can.
But you shouldn't be.
It's gonna feel awkward to bring it up, but you need to bring it up.
Got to do it.
It's, you know, it's normal to feel awkward and be like, is this right? But honesty is the best policy.
Mm-hmm. And like you said, sometimes you might be standing funny, or you might have your head at an angle, and maybe the piercer can help you,
or the jewelry sticking, or you have
choice.
a curve and it's curved off to the side right now, or there's a lot of things it could be, or it could be crooked. You might be right, but say something.
Akia made me do it. Says, if I got a septum piercing done 2 weeks ago and the piercer did not pierce it in the right place, is it too soon to get it redone? I want to get it redone this weekend.
Yes. If they pierced you in the wrong place, that being said, like through the cartilage and it hurt really bad, that cartilage is going to stay really, really swollen, and you need to get that tissue in the normal state. So we pierce it and the swelling goes down, and all of a sudden you have a crooked piercing. That's my opinion. So
what if it wasn't the cartilage? What if they hit the sweet spot but just crooked? Same deal.
I would say give it a couple, maybe a week or so. If it didn't hurt at all and it was just a little crooked, maybe a week or so, and you should be able to get it re-pierced. Sometimes it's a month. It kind of depends on how it was pierced, how bad, swollen, and where.
It should be pretty pain-free. Like if they pinch their own septum, it shouldn't really hurt.
Yep.
So hopefully that helps.
Yes.
Jackie Morgan says, hi, Scott and Jared.
Hi.
I had my conch and flat re-pierced after they were previously pierced over a year ago, and I left them out before re-piercing. So we had a conch and a flat. We pierced them over a year ago, and then we left out for a while and got them re-pierced, and they seem to actually be doing better this second time around.
Okay. Yeah. Absolutely. Sometimes going through scar tissue, the scar tissue has a little bit more blood flow, might have a little bit more room to heal and more relaxed. Sometimes we get caught in, like if you had bumps or issues and it was staying swollen, you get stuck in that position. So sometimes starting with a fresh piercing through scar tissue can feel a little faster. It's just a better situation. Maybe it's better quality jewelry. Maybe it's a better aftercare. Maybe you care now more because you had problems the first time. You know, there's a lot of variables, but yeah, they can heal faster. Totally normal.
Sky says, hi, Scott. I'm going to get my navel pierced this Saturday with my auntie. Any tips that you have about that type of piercing that most don't know about? Love your vids, by the way. I think you shared that tip earlier, and that's that your pants are going to mess your piercing up.
Correct.
So be careful about how
low-rise pants and your lifestyle. If you're leaning against counters and things like that, it's an issue. If you get pierced with a curved barbell and you have the appropriate anatomy, they heal in 3 to 6 months. They're great piercings. Yeah.
Stephanie wants to know if it's common for lobe piercings to bleed like once a week. I'm 3 months in. My helix never bleeds, but my lobe does, and I got them done at the same time.
Generally, no, but it's the body. Sometimes it could be crusties getting pulled inside, but you should be healed by that time where you shouldn't be having crusties.
Or scratched up jewelry. Maybe
could be the issue with the jewelry, too short, too long, or just a defect in the middle, reactions to it. I know that our earlobes, when we sleep on them, they can twist and contort, so you might be doing something in your sleep. But yeah, I would say maybe style. Do you wear earphones, earbuds? Is something? When do they bleed? Is it in the mornings? Is it at night? You know,
maybe overnight you're beating it up against your pillow or something.
Yep. So
Sydney has had snake bites for about 5 months. They are now extremely loose, and we want to change them.
Mm-hmm.
If we put in rings instead of the studs,
a lot of people love wearing those rings in there. One thing I will let you know is you healed that tube straight, and you have a straight bar in there. When you put a curve, the inside tissue is much softer than the outside of your lip, so it might feel a little raw for a couple days as it kind of changes the angle. It just kind of opens the hole up a little bit in the back for the ring to kind of go around the lip. Not a bad thing. I'm just going to let you know that it's going to feel a little raw and feel a little weird, but the fistula is still established, and you'll be able to go back to the studs in the pretty much the same position. So,
okay. So a little soreness in your mouth, but not a big deal.
Yep.
Super cool. Sydney,
it's going to be weird,
awesome.
But kind of a fun little adventure.
Send us a picture to piercingwithscott@gmail.com. We want to check that out.
Yeah.
A. Gonzalez says, after so many years of piercings, do you freehand piercings or do you use forceps for all piercings? Greetings from South Texas.
Hi. It depends. I am all about the customer experience. It is not about worrying about doing freehand or clamped or receive. It's what works best for the situation. Generally, like for nipples, I'd like to clamp them because they go much faster, and I'm able to get it over with for them. Sometimes navels I'll clamp, sometimes I freehand them. I always put a clamp down on my tray, and what's best for the situation. Eyebrows, I always freehand. Lips, I always freehand. Septums are always receiving tube, nostrils receiving tubes. It varies from, person to person.
So it, like any other tool, when you need the tool, you use it. When you don't, you don't.
Correct.
Now, I've seen other piercers almost act like it's a point of pride to only do things freehand. Like, I don't need those silly tools. I'm going to do everything with my tools. Like,
Correct.
What do you think about that? Is that an attitude that's good, or does that almost like harm the customer for your bravado?
If it works for you and you can honestly give the customer a better experience, cool. I personally don't think that's the case. Like, I don't like freehanding nipples unless someone has like an inverted nipple and the clamp won't go on, and I don't have an option, because if the clamp's on there, the piercing's just faster and smoother.
And that's going to hurt less.
That's my opinion. Yes.
Pull the Band-Aid off quick.
And there's a lot of people like, I don't like the clamp because the clamp hurts too much. But, don't put the clamp on so tight.
Right. I mean, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, put it on enough to hold the tissue steady, and that's all you need. So it's situational. What's best for the customer, what you can do as far as the fastest piercing, the smoothest piercing, and cause the least trauma and pain, that's what you should be doing.
Excellent. It's good advice for the piercers out there.
It really is. There's more than one way to get results. As long as you're clean, safe, and giving your customer the best experience, that's what we want the piercers to be doing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Probably depends on the person too. Depending on the size of your hands, you might need or not need clamps or
I've done like navels before where it's like, this is going to be a faster freehand piercing and I can just do it real quick. No problem. And I'll totally do it. Sometimes I can't get a hold of it and I have to use a clamp to hold the tissue steady.
Just whatever's going to work best.
Yeah.
Which of course makes sense. Excellent. Monkey says, are mantis piercings too much with a septum? I like my septum, but I feel like my nose is empty and has some place to fill. Do you feel like they look good together?
I think they look fantastic. Mantis piercings are some of my new favorite piercings. They're easy to get. They look fantastic, and it's a new look, and it's just a simple nostril piercing on the front. Think about it, like septum piercings. I talk about it all the time with the trifecta. What's the difference if they're mantises and the septum? Still the trifecta. It's just
super cool.
Forward-facing trifecta. Yeah.
Danny Ellis says, can we get your personal routine for healing eyebrow piercings? Love your videos. Have a nice day. So when you got those pierced, what do you do every day?
Okay. For the first week or two, I make sure I clean it at least once a day. Generally not more than that, with a wound wash spray, which is sterile saline solution. I'm going to spray directly on my piercings, and I did this right after my shower. I shower in the morning, I get out of the shower, dry off, and I do the wound wash spray, let it sit on there maybe about a minute or so, and then I'll take a paper towel and I just wipe off crusties. Then I just rewash my hands and I check my beads to make sure they stay tight, and I leave it be. And I make sure I have a clean pillowcase at least once a week, sometimes more. And then after a couple of weeks, I back off on my healing, my aftercare regimen. I'll clean it if there's crusties on there, but if I get out of the shower and I look and it doesn't look like there's crusties, I leave it be and let my body try to heal it. But if throughout the day, if it starts stinging, I'll notice it. I'll go ahead and clean it if I need to. So it depends on how things are going. If that makes any sense.
It does. It does. And so I think that that's helpful to people because you see that it's based on the crusties. It's not just like an thing we're doing. We're doing it for a reason.
Correct. We tell people try to clean your piercing throughout the, as needed, or, once a day till it's all the way healed up. But if you don't have crusties, it doesn't need to be cleaned. If your floor is spotless, you don't need to mop it, every single day. It's just like, let it just kind of natural, because you're going to wear away the finish. You're going to irritate it, and you're going to do more damage than less good. Is more. If it needs to be clean, clean it. And that's what I'm saying. Like earlier, some people will get their earlobes pierced and they'll be cleaning it like 9 months or a year later every single day, and it's like, it's really not necessary.
Konicha says, love from Virginia. Kind of gross, but is it normal for mucus to leak to the outside of a nostril piercing when you're blowing your nose?
I've had it happen before.
You're blowing your nose?
I've had it happen before. It's the thing that none of us talk about. Yeah.
It's a big secret.
It does happen. Yeah. Because ultimately, your piercings, are going to loosen up and relax. That's why they move around a little bit more. And if it's just a little bit gap, you might blow a little tiny bit. Air can go through there a little tiny bit. So, yeah.
Now, on a similar point, when I got my labret pierced, I thought for sure I was going to be able to squirt water. I was going to be able to like just walk up and just like, like a flower on a clown or something. I was just going to be able to squirt some water, and I can't at all. There's no way at all.
I did the same thing. Like I had my side of my lips pierced. I even had them stretched up to a 6 gauge.
Okay, so that should have worked.
6 gauge, water out, push, and I would be like red in the face. I couldn't get anything.
Wow.
Maybe a small little drip, like a little leak, like what you're talking about. I've heard
you'd have to get a little tunnel or something.
I've heard of some people be able to do it with their breaths where they can squirt it out a little bit. And
interesting. But again, like you said, body, how stretchy is your skin and what does it allow? Iram Ali says, my conch piercing is a year old. No bumps or irritation anymore, even if I accidentally sleep on it. Can I switch to the ring style, or should I keep the stud in for a little while longer?
You said it's a year old?
It's been a year.
Yeah, you should be fine. If there's no bumps, irritation, or crusties, it's time. Change to what you want. You got to be happy.
All right. Yeah. It's going to look good, too. Again, send us a picture. piercingwithscott@gmail.com. We love it. Go ahead.
And if you're not subscribed, make sure you're subscribed.
Yeah, there's a button.
We love it. It's so easy. Just hit the little button and you're done. It's that easy. And it helps us so much. And also hit the like button.
Annoying fan got their lip pierced with a horseshoe a month ago, and they're still swelling and goo.
Yep.
Is there a way to keep the jewelry so that I can heal this thing, or keep the jewelry still so that I can heal this thing? So annoying fan recognizing that it's the movement that's causing trouble.
Correct. With the circular barbell or the horseshoe, the jewelry can spin and rotate, and that's what's going to cause the irritation. Hopefully, you're using an alcohol-free mouthwash and the wound wash spray to clean it, and you're not putting anything else on there. If you're using ointments, it's going to keep it more lubricated, and you're going to constantly pull those crusties through. So you got to be careful not to use those. When I had my lip pierced and I had a circular barbell on there, sometimes I would flip the ring down so the beads would go over my lip on the inside and outside, and it wouldn't allow it to move. Now, if it's pinching too tight, it's going to cause some irritation. You don't want to do that. But if it's moving around too much, and if you're able to flip it down, that might help you a little bit. Otherwise, I would say maybe go in and have the jewelry changed to some studs. If you're not healing it up after a month, then it's time to change it up maybe.
Spiceburger wants to know if it's normal for a septum piercing to still be sore when it's been...
If you're not healing it up after a month, then it's time to change it up maybe.
Spiceburger wants to know if it's normal for a septum piercing to still be sore when it's been healed for 4 months.
Sometimes that happens. Sometimes when we do the piercing, you might nick the cartilage or kind of it just rubs right up against there and it stays raw for a while. It could be a reaction to a metal. So if you have steel, maybe go to titanium, something different. Maybe the jewelry's too small if it's pinchy.
Okay.
Check out your jewelry. That would be my concern.
It shouldn't be. So there's probably some sort of small problem causing this irritation.
It could be rubbing right up against that cartilage and just staying raw. It might take a little longer to heal us all too.
Safira Rara says, hi, Scott. What do you think of the silicone healing discs for bumps? Are you a disc believer or a no disc piercer?
Pro disc. Yep. I was very skeptical in the beginning. I'm like, here's another little scam thing kind of going. But once customers started coming in and saying they were working, I was like, okay, I'm going to order some. And I started putting them on my customers. And after about a month, their bumps just went away. They just, every time I've used it, it seems to work.
So it's just been effective.
I'm a believer. As long as it works for the type of piercing. Sometimes like nostril piercings, the gems are so small, it doesn't really sit on there properly. But a lot of the Helix piercings, earlobes, belly buttons, it can work amazing. Yeah.
Now, Edwin got a bridge done on February 15th, but we want a thicker bar. When do you think it's okay to change that out? And what do you expect the pain scale on stretching a bridge is?
Once it's fully healed, stretching a bridge shouldn't be that big of a deal. Shouldn't as far as pain. But my concern is bridges are notorious for rejecting out. And stretching can be an irritation where it can start the body in the rejection mode. So you need to be fully healed, fully comfortable, and then you might be able to go up to that size.
So 3 months, is that long enough? Probably not.
I would wait longer. I'd wait longer.
Wait a little longer.
Yeah.
Because like you're saying, it'll irritate it, and then that could start the rejection that
And then
you weren't having.
how big are you right away? You know, did you start at an 18 gauge, a 16 gauge, or a 14 gauge? I don't know.
Right. And what do you plan on stretching up to?
Yeah. A little faster and better.
Interesting.
So weird.
Just seem to
I
stick
did
better.
14 for years. For way back in the day, I did 16s and always rejected. So I think the larger gauge bridges work better if you have the anatomy to support it.
So you have to have a larger pocket there if you're going to wear the big ring. Stephanie says hello from South Africa. We were speaking to her earlier.
Hi, Stephanie.
Tay says hello, Scott. I got my Helix pierced a little over a month ago, and I changed the jewelry a little too soon. I've put the original 10 millimeter barbell back in, but now I got this red bump. How do I deal with it?
Stop changing your jewelry out. You got to be patient and continue cleaning your piercing for the next several months. Generally, the earliest I would suggest changing your jewelry or changing it out to something fancy or fun is going to be probably like the 4 to 6 months range. Sometimes Helix piercings can take a full year to heal. Patience is the key. Get something safe, continue cleaning it, and once you're done with crusties, the swelling's gone down, redness, then you're able to change it. Probably 4 months minimum. But just continue cleaning with the wound wash, maybe some emu oil. Will be about it.
Julia Bullock has a question that's probably pretty common. I'm not sure if you have any personal experience, but maybe know something about it. Do you have any tips or tricks for changing body jewelry if you have long fingernails, which would make it difficult to unscrew beads or any of that stuff?
I don't really know. The only thing I could really say is there's like bead holding pliers and tweezers and things like that you can buy. Maybe you can buy some on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you have like septum ring and you need to get it in there, yeah, I don't know people.
It would have to be tools.
It's funny because every time I do a piercing, I'm like, make sure you check your beads. And I immediately look to their hands and I see those nails. I'm like, uh-oh.
Yeah, how can you check your beads?
I don't know, but some people can do it. Some people can't. They do sell like tweezers with like Teflon, or not Teflon, but like a silicone on the end, which might grip, and you might be able to get a better grip there.
So a tool or a friend. A friend with short nails and
clean hands.
Yeah, well, you always have your friend wash their hands first. Laura says, hi, Scott. Would there be an issue switching my septum between a 16 and a 14 due to limited interesting jewelry options at 14? But I like my normal 14 horseshoe also. So can you put smaller jewelry in? Does that cause any problems?
Sometimes you can go back and forth. If you've been wearing a 14 for a long time and you put a 16 in, by that night, I doubt it's going to shrink up to that 16 to where you will be able to get the 14 back in. If you put a clicker in or a 16 in and wore it for months, it might shrink up, and you put the 14, it might be a little tighter, but you should be able to pretty much go back and forth between the two. And if you struggle doing it, do it in the shower or right after you like soaked in some warm water, because the hot water loosens tissue and allows jewelry to go in easier.
Very cool. Love from Alaska. I have a question.
Sure.
Would a piercer do all the piercings in one sitting for canine bites? I've heard that some piercers don't like to do them all in one sitting.
It kind of depends. It's a lot to heal. I would do it, but it kind of depends on how big of an enthusiast the piercer or piercee is. You know, if they already have a ton of piercings, they know what they're getting themselves into. But at the same time, like things like that it's a lot. Your lips are going to be swollen. You're going to have a lisp. You're not going to talk well. It might be a bad experience. So in my opinion, maybe start off with the lower ones first, like, you know, your snake bites, and then maybe move up to, you know, your
angel bites
afterwards.
So 2 and 2 maybe. But
2 and 2 might make it easier, but at the same time, you're dealing one healing Yeah,
but you're not against all 4. There's no reason why you wouldn't. Do all
you
4
can heal it,
the
but I just can't imagine the amount of swelling all the way around the lips. Like people get lip injections and they're swollen from all that stuff too. So,
all right, people are tough; they can handle it.
Yeah. Again, a piercer is just looking out for your best interest. You know.
Gross says, I got a conch-to-conch industrial piercing last Friday. It's
Sweet.
an awesome piercing, but let me warn you all, it hurts like hell.
Yep. Emily, my manager here, she got her conch-to-conch, and I was really nervous about doing it. Not for the fact that I was doing the piercing. I was just like, I got to work with her. And like, I'm warning you, this is a rough one. This is a long heal. It's a year-long healing process, and it's rough. And she can verify it was rough, but it's fully healed up and it is epic now. So stick with it. Stick with your cleaning. Keep those crusties off and send us a picture. We want to see this.
Hey, Scott, love your vids. If I wear heavy dangly earrings in my lobes, like with big crystals on them,
yeah,
over time, will they stretch?
Yes.
Not in the good way necessarily.
They're trick questions. They're all trick questions for me because it kind of depends. Like there are certain jewelry we have here where they're like 8-gauge hooks and we have the crystals. And if you have a larger, thicker thing on there, it's not going to stretch the ears the same way like an 8-gauge, a little wire thin, which could do the cheese cutter effect, which is my biggest concern.
What do you mean by cheese cutter effect?
Okay. Now, if sometimes people see like if you're cutting a piece of cheese, you'll see like this little and a real thin wire, and that thin wire slices right through the cheese super easily. If you put a real thin wire in here with weight, it slowly does the slicing, not like causing you bleeding, but it's going to create that slit in your ear, long and thin, and making it real thin on the bottom.
I've seen women who had like earrings for decades and decades. Sometimes it's almost more like a long slit than a hole.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. That causes that cheese cutter effect. So if you have a thicker piece of jewelry, like an 8-gauge or a 6-gauge, and then you wore the weights through there, it's not going to stretch it the same way. It might stretch it a little bit where you might be able to get one larger size, but it's not going to create that path or that channel.
It's not going to make a round, even stretch.
Correct.
It's going to create maybe a slot.
Correct. So I hope that answers your question. Yes, it will stretch it, but make sure you stretch in the proper fashion.
What's the best way to clean jewelry at home? Denise wants to know. How do you clean your jewelry?
I am planning on doing a full, thorough video on this. But in my opinion, right now, I'm just going to say soap and water is all you really need to do. Put a towel down over or some sort of drain, something over your drain, because you will drop the jewelry. But just regular soap and water, wash your hands, get in there and kind of use that. There's certain compounds for patching up brass, bronze, gold, things like that. But in general, for cleaning, as far as disinfecting, soap and water. Alcohol, peroxide, chemicals like that can be real harsh. So just soap.
Just clean it.
Just
clean it and rinse it well.
You're washing away your own germs. It's your germs on your ear. It's not like it's an open wound. You have to worry about infections. You're just keeping the stuff off of it.
Just keep it from getting gross.
Yep.
In reference to earlier, you're talking about beads, genital beads?
Purling, yes.
Purling. Dr. Richard Lover says, in jail, people were putting domino pieces under the skin on top of their shaft, and they were calling it a kanika. He's not sure of the spelling. Is this a real thing outside of jail?
Is kanika, is that I heard Russians did things with marbles.
Okay.
I don't know the exact backgrounds here, so but I know I think Russians took a marble and they carved or took a domino and carved it into like a marble. And they called it marbles. And I know
they started with a domino, like a game piece?
And they've carved that. And that's what they called the marble. Okay. I know the Yakuza, the Japanese mafia, it's where it kind of started is like every year in prison, they would put a real pearl in there. That's where the term purling came from. And they'd use a sharpened chopstick and they would almost carve and cut it in prison and the skin would attach around it. See, nowadays we use Teflon beads so the skin doesn't attach. You can remove it.
Now, when you say a pearl, you mean like out of an oyster or a clam, like a little pearl?
Yes.
And what's the difference? Does that heal in differently?
100%. It's super porous and your tissue will grow and it becomes part of the body. And you literally would need to almost carve it out if you wanted to remove it. Now we're using Teflon beads so the bead can kind of move around. If you just did a little tiny cut, you can pop it out and it's removable.
So it's less permanent. So there's actually a history of this in many cultures.
A lot of prisons, they do these things. And whether it's, marbles, pearls.
That is interesting. It does seem to be specifically prisons in different cultures too, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I'm not 100% sure why that. Yeah.
Super interesting. So maybe there's a history of that kind of stuff, a video we could do someday. But yes, Dr. Richard Lover, that is a real thing outside of jail.
Unfortunately happen.
Unfortunately, plenty of people pay good money for that stuff. What do you mean unfortunately?
Well, in prison.
Oh, okay.
That's not safe conditions.
No, they don't have an autoclave or anything. I got some new clickers for my 2 nostril piercings that are a bit thicker than my old jewelry. I managed to get one of them in a few days ago and it stopped hurting. Should it hurt so much? So we're basically talking about like a home stretch, right?
Yep. Home stretches can be fine. And was it cartilage?
Clickers for nostrils.
Yes. If it's slightly thicker, trust me, if you stretch your nose, it's going to stay sore for a long time. Like mine would stay sore for weeks at a time, but smaller sizes between an 18 gauge or a 20 gauge, you can go back and forth and it'll be tender for a day or so. Yeah. To be expected. And the bigger you go, the longer it stays sore.
Summer wants to know if it's possible to use eyebrow jewelry for a tongue web piercing.
Yes. I'm assuming you're talking about is probably a curved barbell. Now make sure it's all titanium or a proper metal, not acrylic or plastic, but you can do a curved barbell on there. You can do a circular barbell for the web, or you can do a cap to bead ring with a single bead on there. I don't ever suggest clickers or seam rings because the little seam or the gap will get in the middle in the fresh piercing and tissue can close up on it, which can cause a lot of issues. But yeah, all three of those, all options for eyebrows are possibilities for the piercing.
Genevieve says, hi, Scott and Jared.
Hey, Genevieve.
Hello. My question is, would it be possible to do an orbital through the conch, the doff, and then the conch again so that it loops behind the ear? And how difficult would that be?
Say what, conch to what?
Conch, doff, conch. So that it basically like a ring that went through the outside of the ear also. Really depends on anatomy and ring size, right?
It really, really depends. I'm going to say no. Yes, it's possible, but the thing is for the ring to go through the doff and then through the conch and conch, the ring size is going to have to be ginormous where you're probably going to see the ring almost coming out of the back of the ear.
Okay. Which is an interesting look, but that's not necessarily what you're going for.
Unless you had a tiny conch and the ring or the circular bar, I would say more with a curved barbell. You can do it more with a curved barbell than a type of ring.
And it's because you need the piercings to go perpendicularly through the tissue, right?
Yes, perpendicular and trying to get the angles right.
Sarah says, hey, the only time I was pierced was traumatic and painful. So we got some bad feels. What do you recommend? How do you make people relax before a piercing?
Okay. You got to find someone you're comfortable with. Go into, if you do research, you think you find a piercer you like, maybe go into the shop and just say you're jewelry shopping. Don't tell them you want to get pierced. Don't, say, hey, I'm just looking for jewelry for my friend who wants their doff pierced. I just want to see what I might buy them gifts or something like that afterwards. And I'll say, oh, make sure it's healed all the way up and down, but I'll show you all the options. And you can get a good feel, a good vibe on how that piercer is. Okay. If they're harsh, they're mean, you don't feel comfortable with them, you're going to have a bad experience. So just kind of get the vibe of the shop, get the vibe of the piercer. You're already scared. You're not committing to anything. All you're doing is you're going in there and saying, hey, you're shopping for your friend for a piece of jewelry. You know what I'm saying? So you get the vibe that way. Then you're going to want to bring a friend with you. Make sure they allow someone in with you, someone you're comfortable with, someone's going to support you, make sure everything's done, just got your back. Someone just to hold your hand if you need it. Good night's sleep before you go in, nice meal before you go in, and you just need to surrender to the experience. It's going to be scary. Every person gets nervous and butterflies. But if you want it done, you just commit to the experience, find someone you trust, find a good friend to be there for you, and you'll be fine.
Take a deep breath and do it. Mm-hmm. It's like riding a roller coaster.
Everyone's scared. Some of us get more scared than others because of these negative experiences. A good piercer will make this amazing. It's amazing how many people come to me and I'm so nervous. I'm just my last thing hurts so bad. And everyone's get done with me and that was it. I hear that all the time. That was it. Yeah.
It's mostly in your head.
It's really mostly in your head and you build it up so much and you can't get it out of your head, but you just got to surrender to that. You want it done. It's going to happen. You'll be okay. Just so everyone knows, I have a perfect track record. No one's ever died on me.
Never.
Been doing this a long time, 26, 27 years. Not a single person.
Not one death on the table.
Not one. Perfect record.
All right. Well, we are running out of time, so we're going to try to just answer a few more questions before we go today. I'm going to mix a couple questions together here. One is about a flat piercing pierced at a 14. Is it okay to downsize to a 16, or is there some reason why a flat has to be a 14? And similar question. Does wearing smaller gauge earrings on cartilage for a long time make that hole shrink? Would the time when you couldn't go back up to the larger size?
On earlobes, you'll always be able to re-stretch back up. Sometimes you need tools, sometimes it's a little bit of time, but earlobes re-stretch up faster the second time around. As far as downsizing the jewelry, there's generally a lot more options for jewelry in the 16 gauge and the threadless and so forth. But if you want to keep the 14, you can always get threadless in 14. And some of the tops can get a little bigger in the 14 gauge than the 16 gauge for the flats. But there's no reason. You can downsize if you want. It will shrink up and it'll be tough to stretch back up in the cartilage. But yeah, you can totally do that.
All right. So there are so many questions that we didn't get to. We love all of you, and we can't wait to do this again in 2 weeks. We have one final question from Denise Diaz. Thank you very much, Denise. We love you. Hi, I'd like to know what metals to use on septum and cartilage piercings and what metals to avoid.
Excellent. Septum and cartilage piercings, I will only pierce with titanium or niobium or gold. Okay. When I say gold, it has to be solid gold. I don't ever use plated. It has to be 14 karat or better. And as they always say, it's like buy from a reputable source. If you're buying some place on Amazon, you don't know the level, what other metals are in there. There's cadmium, there's other bad metals. So a quality piece of gold is super, super important. Otherwise, titanium or niobium, they're pure metals. Generally, people don't have reactions to them. Niobium would only work for rings. We generally don't make barbells or studs out of niobium because it's a softer metal, but it's totally safe for the body. Titanium, generally, no one's allergic to that. You can color these metals. So it means you can anodize them. And there's a ton of options. So those are the best metals to get pierced with. So winding this all up, if you haven't subscribed already, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit the like. And of course, keep putting holes in your body. We'll see you all in the next video.